This week, we're watching John Carpenter's The Fog. The Fog is a ghost movie. That means it's about, ghosts. So why is the most vexing thing in this entire movie how on earth 62-year-old Hal Holbrook has the shoulder muscles to hold up that giant solid cross of gold seemingly for, ever? No one has ever had the guts to say it, but I'm going to say it. What kind of gear was Hal Holbrook running in the 80s? Welcome to Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Half-Ass Movie Podcast, a show where we put together a half-ass theme as an excuse to watch movies. My name is Adam Portress, and joining me today, you can always see his red eyes glowing at night surrounded by smoke. Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
Hey, everybody, you're listening to jazz all night long because I'm trying to keep you awake. So I'm going to be talking like this all night long to all those sailors out there and playing slow jazz.
Nothing's going to keep you up at night like a good old bout of smooth jazz here for you. Try not to back to the rock, shall you?
How does that work?
There's if we're playing jazz, how about some up-tempo sort of stuff here? How about some Dixieland or something? Something that's going to get people going like, oh my gosh, I gotta wake up here. Instead of like, no, we need to bring
just slow, smooth
jazz.
jazz all night long.
Well, our friend Bruce Leslie has been driving a little bit too fast, I think, because he had a tire blow out there in the streets of Ohio, and I don't know what you know about Ohio. You don't want to be stuck there, but boy, you want to get back on the road as soon as possible. But unfortunately, he will be missing this week, but maybe, cross your fingers, he'll be back here with us next week and everything. And it's one of his children's birthday as well. That's a lovely thing. Yeah, I think the youngest one's birthday's this weekend and everything as well. So that's awesome. Can't blame him there.
Not so youngest one anymore.
Not so youngest anymore. Who I think is the low key one of the kids and stuff. You don't hear about him as much. You hear about the other two. The youngest one, watch out for that one. Watch out for that one. I'm telling you.
That is usually the way that goes.
He is the one that you don't hear him talk about too much, but all of a sudden, I'm telling you, that's going to be the one you better keep your eye on that one, boy. All right. So, Bruce, we'll have you back next week, but we got to keep our Jamie Lee Curtis miniseries, Scream, Queen-O-Ween, the films of Jamie Lee Curtis. We got to keep it chugging here, baby. Last week, we left off. Jamie Lee Curtis would finish off Halloween and go right on to another scary movie, also directed by John Carpenter. So this week, we're talking about The Fog from 1980. My goodness. You know what's funny? I was doing a little research and stuff on this. The reason that they kind of went into The Fog and stuff right after this, because as far as they were concerned, they didn't really know that Halloween ended up being a hit.
Right. They didn't know yet.
They were just like, oh, well, we're just going to go on, try to do the next thing. Somebody gave us a little bit of money to do this next one. So, just keep the train running there and everything, especially when you're, low budget and young and that sort of stuff. The second somebody's going to give you some money, by God, start making your next film.
Yep.
Because
once Arco said, "Yeah, we'll give you $1 million for your next movie," he was like, "We're on, let's go."
And away we go. So we're going to check out all of that, get into the goods of it and everything. This is Sean's first time watching The Fog, so we're going to I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation about all this. Before we do, though, we want to say a big giant thank you to the people who support this show over at patreon.com/HMP. Those awesome people get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and since it's our second John Carpenter flick in the month here and everything in a row, no less, we decided to talk about our top 5 John Carpenter films. Since we did our top 5 Jamie Lee Curtis last week, we'll do our top 5 John Carpenter films this week and everything. So we had a great conversation over there. Check it out, patreon.com/HMP. Whatever this show means to you, just put in $1 form, send it back our way. That way we don't disappear. But if you don't have, the extra scratch and everything, why don't you just go over there to the iTunes, drop us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. Tell your friends. That's how the show ends up growing, is just tell one of your friends that likes this stupid thing, or go, oh, I know that Dave really likes The Fog or whatever, or maybe Dave hates The Fog. Send him this episode, just share it with friends, let other people know. That's the best way to get this show out there. We really appreciate that. Oh, and by the way, if you're not near a podcast catching device of some sort, but you're near the YouTubes, for heaven's sake, go over and check us out on YouTube. Just look up Half-Ass Movie Podcast on YouTube. There will show up and everything. Subscribe to that so you can just listen to the audio form over there on YouTube. So also a nice little convenient convenience for you. So check that out. Patreon.com/HMP.
Also, the top fives this week. Who would have guessed we both had body bags on our top five?
Man, listen. I wanted to put cigarette burns there, but you know, you gotta give the people what they want. You gotta put the top ones at the top, you know? So patreon.com/HMP. All right, let's get into it. Here's the IMDb plotline for The Fog. As we all know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. Local legend tells of a ship lured onto the rocks of Antonio Bay, being enveloped by a supernatural cloud as it sank. The myth says that when the mysterious fog returns, the victims will rise up from the depths, seeking vengeance. This is written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, directed by John Carpenter, starring Adrian Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, Tom Atkinson, Janet Leigh, Nancy Keys, again, the just recently passed Charles Cyphers, Hal Holbrook, John Carpenter cameo, Buck Flowers, as you guessed it, a drunk.
Wow.
I know, right?
Who'd have guessed that?
Like, no one just goes, excuse me, Buck, we need you to come in and play businessman number 3.
It's true.
Not really happened a whole bunch for that guy.
You know, it's true. I had never seen The Fog, and it's not from me going, oh, that movie looks way too scary. It was one of those movies where I just never got around to it. It wasn't something where I was avoiding it. You know, I like John Carpenter. And so I was like, oh, this is neat. There's a John Carpenter movie before he fell off a cliff with his creativity. Let's explore this thing.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. That's what we did this week. I not only saw the movie, but I also watched the making of documentary that they made in around 2000, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really informative if you want to know what bullshit sounds like, because everyone in that documentary is bullshitting and lying the people who, yes.
How so?
So to give an example, Janet Leigh, who is by far not even close the worst part of this movie, not even close. Buck Flowers is doing rounders around her. That's how bad she is in this movie. Is still acting with that 40s, 50s acting,
darling,
where what? Everything is way too big. You know, it's the late 70s, early 80s. Everyone is subdued. We have
50-foot wide screens now. We need to, calm it down a little.
Yeah. But she's on there on the documentary, roughly around 2000, saying how people come up to her, quote, all the time, telling her how The Fog is their favorite movie. No, they're not. No one is coming up to you saying that The Fog is their favorite movie. You know, Janet Leigh, there is one movie people want to talk about when they see you on the street. There's only one.
And it's The Fog, as we all know.
It's so bullshitty, man.
Oh, that's great.
And the only person who's telling the truth, because it seems like a gypsy curse was put on the man, is John Carpenter himself. John Carpenter is incapable of bullshit.
No, he's never been one to mince words or sugarcoat things
at all.
No,
he can't even round edges on some of the things he says, because he was talking about the first cut of the movie coming in, and he's like, I wasn't there because I was traveling after we had shot the movie when we were done with principal photography, and so then when I came back and I saw the first cut of the movie, and it was bad. It was shitty. And so I knew that he's like, and I knew that part of the blame was on me. So I had to go back in.
The writer director, I'd figure part of the blame might be on you. Yeah.
So I had to go back in, and we had to reshoot some scenes. And he is the only one, but even Jamie Lee Curtis is that movie was amazing. It's right up there with other horror movies of its genre. And I'm like, no, it's not.
There's
Jamie
somebody
Lee Curtis,
off.
I just saw.
Somebody's just off camera pointing a gun at him, going, "Say something good about the movie. Say something good about the movie."
It's so terrible. And the cool part was that you see a latter day Deborah Hill, which I had not seen any interviews with her.
Mhm.
And so that part made it really cool. And she's talking about how John came up with the idea for the fog, and it's exactly like you think.
Yeah.
Like how he came up with the premise for it is exactly what you think it is, which is they were traveling abroad and some fog came over some water, and he turns to her and goes, "That's what our next movie should be."
It's pretty creepy, right? Yeah. Yeah. You don't know what's in it. I don't know what's in it. Yeah. That's scary. Well, we got our next one.
It's interesting too, because like I love the premise behind the movie. Like I think it's a neat thing where there was this ship that the townspeople lured in, and they all were killed due to their false fires that they were making to lure in the ship so that they could steal what was on that ship.
Which is a really cool, awesome idea,
Great idea, and based on a true story, which makes it even cooler. The problem is execution.
Yeah.
In this movie. Like everything is there. The problem is the first two people we meet is Jamie Lee Curtis and our boy, and she's hitchhiking.
Yeah.
And they immediately start a relationship. That isn't how that works. That is not how you make a movie. Maybe in real life, in 1980, that might have happened. Maybe, probably not. But that's not how you make your movie.
Well, the big thing is that like she's hitchhiking. Tom Atkinson's driving his truck down the road, picks her up and everything, and she plays the like, I've never been hitchhiking before, but she's clearly been hitchhiking for a little bit here and everything. But now? First of all, let me ask you this: because I don't know with you, and it's like that's why I'm asking, because it perplexes my mind. I'm like, has Sean ever hitchhiked? You're of it. Yeah. See, I wouldn't think you would, but like you're of just enough of an age where it's like there's a chance that you might have at some point for a little something or other, especially, you know. Yeah.
It's I know why you would think that, because there is the generation gap between us. But when I was in elementary school is when they started Stranger Danger.
Oh, yeah.
And so like that was definitely a no.
So yeah, you were just on the cusp at the beginning of them kind of going like, you know what,
yes.
Maybe we ought not.
Yes. I can remember being in elementary school and like if somebody shows up that you don't know, offering you candy, like all of that stuff.
Okay.
I was in first, second grade when we got that talk.
Now, let me ask you this then. Also same kind of basic question and everything. Have you, now I can almost guarantee I know the answer to this. Have you ever picked up someone hitchhiking? I would imagine the answer would be absolutely not.
You would think so.
I would, but yeah, like I said, there was also like a little part of me in there that thinks like, maybe, but what do you got?
I was in the car with somebody who pulled over to pick up a hitchhiker.
Okay, that's close, but you wouldn't.
I personally have never pulled over to pick up a hitchhiker. No.
Okay.
But I was in the car with my friend Mary, and Mary pulled over and was like, "Hey man, you want to ride?" And the guy was like, "Sure." And he's a kid like us, like we were kids,
not shitting bricks or anything the entire time. Going, no, don't do that.
No, he was a totally normal guy. Like he was like Grateful Dead hippie kid.
Okay, so yeah, you probably weren't in any like actual danger.
No, if anything, I would have been more worried if I was the kid getting in.
Yeah.
It was it was a weird. It wasn't something where I was like comfortable ever with that situation.
Yeah.
But Mary was totally fine. But Mary's also like a very chill person when it comes to that. How about you? Have you ever hitchhiked or picked up a hitchhiker?
Well, I've never hitchhiked. I couldn't imagine, it can't be safe. The person who would pick you up, why would you want to be with that person? It feels like they got a little something that's like, because I wouldn't pick me up. But I, oddly enough, like during a snowstorm and everything, I ended up just kind of driving out to like the one restaurant that was open, and I made the mistake of just sitting in my car and eating. And then there were two guys who were like kind of stranded or whatever and couldn't get anywhere. And like, hey, can you just drive us like, 2-3 blocks this way? And I'm like, all right. So I get in, and it turned into a whole big ordeal. It was basically after hours at that point.
Sure.
I'm just like, I'm going across, all of a sudden we're making stop at baby mama's house and doing all this other crap. No. And I'm like, oh my God, it turned into a whole ordeal. It was just like way too much time. So, and again, that's why I'm a nice person, but I gotta stop trying to be nice. That's a bad move. But you know what I didn't do with those people? I didn't do what Jamie Lee Curtis does and develop a weird ass relationship with. I wanted to get those people out of my life. I didn't want to go, you know what? I feel like I need to stick around a little while and see how this all works out.
Also, really weird that somebody who looks like Jamie Lee Curtis has a problem finding rides to places.
Yeah, dead of night.
You think that she would have a very easy time getting money to be able to go to wherever she wants.
But Tom Atkinson's there, so that's fine. And by the way, should he always have a mustache? I think the answer is yes.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Golly bum, buddy. You gotta.
Yeah, he looks weird in this.
Don't do that. But like that's the biggest of all the things in this. Take the ghost stuff. I will believe over the fact that these two develop a relationship this quickly. Number one, they're banging before they even know each other's names. Yikes.
Yeah, which is again that it feels like a very John Carpenter-y, like, Deborah Hill, why didn't you pull this from the script?
Yeah,
like, this is not something that normal people would do. It feels like an argument that was probably had between Deborah Hill and John Carpenter, or John Carpenter 1.
He just goes, you don't understand. This is my life.
I made Halloween.
They're like, that hasn't been a hit yet. Shit.
It's it immediately took me out of the movie, which is a bad sign for what's coming next.
But real fast though, did you know? Like I wasn't aware of this, but apparently, old John Carpenter was dating Barbeau at one point.
Oh, married to.
Oh, married to. That's even crazier.
Yeah,
he's had a little run there, little John Carpenter. You wouldn't think so, being the scary little spaghetti man that he is.
I know he looks like the Crypt Keeper. But he was throwing it around for a while.
He must talk. He must spit a good game.
My guess is that he probably has that same dynamism that like Spielberg has, or someone like that, where they're in their head a lot,
mm-hmm.
and there's probably a lot of that happening with that guy.
Love the cameo. Love the thank God we don't get more of that. He didn't decide to be like.
Do not need more.
Your cameo is enough. Honestly, does that not feel like that actor did not show up for the day? So we've got to just do this. So John, you got halfway decent clothes on.
I don't know. I think the fact that he puts his name over the title right from the beginning, because the first Halloween he didn't do that, right? No,
it's up there. No, it's up there.
Oh, even from the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was one of his stipulations.
If you're putting your name over the title of your movie, you probably feel pretty good about being a day player on your own film,
Yeah.
So I'm gonna guess that that was always the idea, and also that way he got to spend more time with Hal Holbrook, which he probably totally dug, because he even mentions that in that 2000 documentary, he mentions that it might have been Deborah Hill, but one of them mentions that they knew him from all of the Mark Twain stuff that he had done.
Oh yeah. He did the whole was it a Broadway run or something?
Yeah, that Broadway run of Mark Twain, where apparently that was a much bigger deal than I thought. I thought that was like kind of a one-off thing, but no, he did it for years and years, apparently. And they loved him so much in that they wanted to bring him into this movie. And it is weird to see him so young, because I know him as a much older person. And so to see him at probably 50 in this movie.
That sounds about right.
Still looking virile instead of being,
yeah, you wouldn't
brought around.
You wouldn't say that this is the old priest. This is just the middle-aged priest.
This guy ain't no spring chicken, but he's also not the old guy.
Exactly. He's a little bit of a worn veteran, but not so much so that you're just like, our World War II.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And he's pretty great in it, honestly. The performances, with the exception of Janet Leigh, the performances in this movie are totally like fine and very of the era.
Yeah.
Very understated, very low key. Except for Adrienne Barbeau, who is basically playing 3 different roles at once. And this is the only movie I can think of where she's not like mean as hell. I always think of her as playing just really mean, vicious ladies in movies.
Yeah,
but
she's kind of she's got a little spunk in her, but I wouldn't say
right. But she's not angry. Like I always think of her as like screaming at somebody, just volatile lady in movies for some reason. Probably because the first thing I think I ever saw her in was Back to School. So like that's probably why I think of her.
Leave an impression on you, yeah.
But she's she's a charmer in this movie. Like she looks great. She is I do not understand her job. Like she bought the lighthouse and turned it into a radio station. Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, or the radio broadcasts out of the lighthouse station, and they work in conjunction then because I guess light's not enough. We got to broadcast some smooth jazz out to them at the same time too, because for double the quote unquote safety, which is we're not really doing safety. We're trying to get you in to rob you of your riches.
Yeah. But they're not trying to, she's trying to save sailors, right?
Yeah, more or less. Well, that's what we're to believe.
And shocker of shocks, because if you were to ask me before I saw that doc, I would have told you, of course they built that pier in that lighthouse, that ridiculous looking lighthouse. But no, they found it. It is a location.
Huh.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, that's like, there's weird things in this where you're like, sometimes you go like, oh, what is this? Where is this location? And then there's other times where you're just like, oh, this seems expensive. And then there's other times where you're like, oh, we are just doing all of these crappy processed car shots and stuff. Where there is
a lot of that
black background and like there's so much just driving in this movie to damn near nowhere with nothing going on to make any of the shots interesting and stuff like that. There's a lot of that in this one.
There's also any time you don't see out a window in the lighthouse, they are on a stage.
Yeah.
Because the size of that radio station gets bigger and smaller from scene to scene, from shot to shot.
Yeah.
Where it's like, so how big is this place? Because it kept throwing me because, of course I'm going to pay attention to that kind of thing. And there's nothing like making movies before people gave a shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so how big or small is this lighthouse actually that kept happening?
Yeah, it's all over the place. And like, you're never quite sure. By the way, how fantastic. I love watching this thing where I see the old radio station there and everything. And I go, I got a better boom arm than the lady who's, professional radio. That's so great because that thing looked like an old cheap piece of China garbage that she's got there. It's so great.
It is.
And it's just everything about it, the aesthetics of it. Like it doesn't look like anything that, any radio station I've ever been to, but it's fun enough.
No, it's pretty cool. Like this, a lot of the setting, a lot of the set dressing, a lot of the design is great in this movie. I have no problem with that. I was really concerned at one point that they were like trying to pretend this was New England because, lighthouse and all that.
Oh yeah.
But when they made it clear they were in California, I was like, okay, very good. Because this is not New England in any way. So I'm glad that you're not trying to pull a fast one on us here like you did with Haddonfield.
Yeah. That's the weird part to me because like I don't know that I've been to a lot of like kind of different beaches, if you will. I've kind of been to like your more traditional beach, but I've never been to like a California beach like those ones there, not your traditional sand kind of beaches, and like your weird New England beaches and stuff like that where you look and you're like, that's what you call a beach. I've never been to any of these places. I need to get my my beach certification card and go around to all the different types of beaches.
They
I only
make
been to,
those?
I
mean
would
I could
imagine.
have a beach certification card right now?
If you send in your right postage and everything, it's if you send in just a regular blank envelope, they're gonna be like, asshole, we're not sending that back. Where's my 45 cents? What's a stamp cost these days? How old am I at this point? Remember when stamps cost a quarter? What do you think about Fog as the actual kind of, villain of this, if you will, or beacon on the horizon, always kind of, threatening things?
I think that I think Gremlins does it best when it comes to your rules of engagement, when it comes to the Gremlins themselves,
Mm-hmm.
like, explicitly what it's on the goddamn poster, the 3 rules of dealing with Mogwai.
Yeah.
Right. I don't really understand the rules of these dead sailors. I guess they're pirates because they sure as hell look like pirates when they're coming out of that fog.
I always thought pirates and stuff, and I really specifically watched back again this time, kind of looking for the more pirate sort of thing. And while they're kind of swords and stuff, and you could probably, extrapolate from that, but they never really quite go out and so far specifically say pirates.
Right. I think that we're just so used to thinking pirates, but I think they might just be sailors.
But let's be honest. Let's quick question though. If you are a sailor and you are sailing around with a sword, are you not de facto at least edging to be pirate? Perhaps.
Well, I think that if you're on a ship and you're a sailor and you have that in your hand, I believe it's called a cutlass.
Oh,
but that might just be me.
I wasn't aware of the rules. I'm sorry.
Our guy who would totally know the answer to this and would speak to us like we're idiots for not actually knowing.
Oh, gentlemen, don't you know how swords work? No, apparently not.
You fools. The man who owns multiple swords would know the answer to this. However, I like that the clock rings at midnight. I understand that, but what I don't understand is, and then the pirates go away or the sailors go away.
Listen, they're in a union, so they're not getting paid overtime, so they are clocking out when it's time to go. Boy, they're just
also I know that the 6 of them were killed right back in the late 18th century, early 19th century. Like they get killed by the town folk there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they need to kill 6 people to avenge them, and that happens every 100 years. Is that the deal?
That's the problem. Like you said, the rules themselves are vague and a little bit. And part of the problem here, let's get it out there now. Part of the problem is the movie's kind of slow and a little boring. So you can,
a little,
yeah, I'm being nice.
A little,
you can so easily just kind of start rolling off because it's almost white noise. The plot sometimes in this movie where you're just like, some shit's happening. Oh, look at that ghost, I guess. All right, fog. Is it? We got the fog. Does the fog heat your skin off or something? No, it's just scary. Sweet.
It's hiding the sailors.
Yeah, so they can so they'll jump out with their swords and stab you in the back when you're not looking. That's about as best we got.
I couldn't understand the rules, which was making it difficult to watch. So they don't come back every year. Is this the only time they've ever come? Who sells a perfectly good lighthouse?
They got a timeshare. They're out. They're just like, listen, we can only come back here for once every 4 years. We have our little moment. We kill a couple people. We have a blast. Then we go off into the sea again. And then we come back a couple years later for more revenge, as you do.
And not to jetpack to the end here, but I also don't understand. So they were always after the gold all along. And
that's
so
what I was to understand.
So when he hands them the gold cross that's been hidden in the wall for 2 centuries, then they go away, but then they cut off his head later.
That's what I don't understand.
I does that mean they're back? There's a bunch of things that just don't make much sense to me about this movie. And I will tell you that this movie is like, well, Halloween worked. Let's just make Halloween, but with ghost sailors.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work as well because it's not nearly as cool. Although I will say that is a really cool effect with the fog coming in and you see the sailors by silhouette and you see their lit up eyes. Like that part's cool.
Yeah, there's some really cool elements. Cool. It's just that like we don't have, like you said, the full execution of everything. We've got the elements that are there, but we just don't have the. Well, frankly, I guess it's the script that's really not. That's kind of the weak.
It is
link in the chain.
The script is the weakest thing, right? Because not only does it start weird, but it's slow as molasses.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is so much of just Jamie Lee Curtis and our guy there just driving around in a truck, like. So much just driving around in a truck.
And it's not like 2-lane blacktop or something or like Badlands where you're driving and then there's like scenery or something to look at. It's all just black. It looks like nothing. And they're not being chased
and they're not trying to save someone. I mean, at the end of the movie, they're trying to save people, but like the first 2 acts of this movie are them just driving around.
They're not saying anything overly interesting.
No, and it is molasses, and it doesn't pass the phone test, not even remotely.
No,
but there is something here, though. Like there is something interesting about this movie. It's interesting enough to where I wasn't like, well, this is 2 hours ruined. Like it is interesting to watch.
You could see in the 2000s how somebody would go, "Hey, we could remake this." And if they went in with the right, intentions and everything, they could have made a good one. I never saw, but I heard the Fog remake from the 2000s was terrible. But
is it? Who's in that? I don't even know.
I think it's Tom Welling, Superman. I think
really?
I think he's in that. I could be wrong. That's just from memory. I think he's in that remake. But
that's interesting.
It's one of those that you would think this would be the type of movie that you kind of want to remake, right? One that's got like a decent idea, a cool premise or whatever, but just didn't really have the full whatever to finish the job and do it like you really wanted to. Those are the types of movies that you need to remake, and hopefully you can do that successfully. Sometimes you do that and you have John Carpenter's The Thing, or you have the non-John Carpenter Fog. Or the non-John Carpenter Thing sequel, whatever the hell that thing ended up being that I never watched because I was like, why? Why would I ever do that?
Yeah, you were right. It's Tom Welling
and
Selma Blair.
Selma Blair, yeah. I remember stuff about it, but it was just one of those like, why would I want to do that? And I'd heard bad things, so you just kind of you go, you know what? It's probably best I don't, because the original Fog wasn't all that great, so I wouldn't imagine that the remake, unless you did something wildly different, would be all too different, because that's not how, like, at least specifically at that time, they weren't really doing remakes like that. They would just be like, we're going to try to translate this as best we can instead of going off the plantation and doing something else different and out there and stuff. We're like, nope, we're remaking Texas Chainsaw Massacre basically the same way.
One of the things I can't get this out of my head. So do you mind if we go down
sure
down a side quest here for a second? So, actresses get it all the time. We're like, wow, that lady fell off a cliff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that happens a lot. I'm sure I've said it on this very show. That doesn't happen to dudes very often.
Not as easily.
Say what?
Not as easily.
Right. But I think that no one in the looks department has fallen off a cliff harder than Tom Welling. Tom Welling was probably one of the best looking people in Hollywood for a while. I mean, he was so bloody handsome forever.
Mm-hmm.
And all the ladies loved him. And now it's hard to believe it's the same guy.
It doesn't look like the same dude. He's like, I wouldn't say he got ugly or anything, but like he definitely doesn't look like he used to.
He's not even remotely handsome anymore. Like he was so handsome, like ridiculously so. And now you see him and you're like, oh man, that's rough. It's like Matthew Broderick, where you're like, dude, you were like the cutest boy in the world. What happened to you?
Oh yeah.
Like it's the same thing.
Yeah, it can be a real problem too when you got the real cute stuff because that can fall the hardest and everything.
Right.
But sometimes you can just kind of you're all right. That's what the good part for Haley Joel Osment. He was a cute kid, but he wasn't so disgustingly cute.
Right.
He was just enough to where it's like, oh, that kid's actually going to grow up to be a good character actor, and he has been. He's done a fantastic job of it. So.
And now he looks like J.D. Vance.
But let me ask you this: is it weird that a ghost would be so petty just to want gold? 'Cause that's what it seems like we're doing, right? Am I wrong?
Look, we can poke holes all over the
place.
And
even if the ghost got it, where's the ghost spending the gold? He's not investing it. Is he melting it down into jewelry? What's going on?
Okay.
I don't get it.
You're right. It doesn't make much sense. You'd think that they'd have bigger fish to fry, right? Like revenge is a perfect thing for ghosts. But gold, probably not so much.
I understand if you want to kill the people that stole your gold. I get it. No problem with that at all. But it's the fact that you're just like, I'd like it back, please. For what purpose?
Right. What are you going to do with it? Give it to the leprechaun?
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Yeah, that's how they have to make some deals. Like the afterlife's kind of like prison. They just have to exchange some things every now and then.
There's your meetup. Mm-hmm. There's your meet cute right there. Like we had the Freddy versus Jason, but like you don't put Mike Myers with somebody else, right? Like that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But the Fog versus Leprechaun, now you're cooking.
Oh man. That was honestly the problem with Shyamalan. He just did the wind as opposed to the fog. You need the fog and the wind, because if it's just the wind, no one sees it. You got to have the fog. The fog is that's the visual.
Well, it wasn't the wind that was the problem. It was the plants.
I was all the same.
Trees were out to get you.
All these trees are choking me to death. They're supposed to be giving me oxygen. They're giving me the opposite of oxygen.
And I would say to you that that's the biggest problem with that movie is Mark Wahlberg. I heard it described one time that Mark Wahlberg is playing someone in that movie that if he met in real life would try to kick his ass.
Oh, that guy's a little bit gay. You know that, right? He's like, oh, geez. He's going at it again. Just like, yeah, listen, he's trying to be all smart. Like, oh, I know stuff about the bees. Shut up. You don't know nothing about bees, guy. Punch. By the way, it's the 70s. I think you guys know how to keep fog, quote unquote, out of the room there. Why don't you put a towel down by the bottom of the door? What's going on with you people?
Or get yourself a wafter.
Something. It just seems like you really don't quite care as much as like you. I think you kind of want to be seen by these ghosts. I think you want them in your house. I'm going to be honest with you.
Although Adrienne Barbeau, when you're being chased by ghosts, maybe the roof isn't the best place to go.
I never understood. It was always great when they kind of mention it there and scream and everything about like, why do these people do all the opposite things that you would want them to actually do? You're going upstairs to try to get away from somebody. Seems like the opposite of what you should actually be doing. And then the great part, and again, one of those awesome things is when the movie itself tells you, hey, that's not something that you're supposed to do. And then, of course, it leads to that thing where they actually do that thing. I love stuff like that. Hot Fuzz does it, and so many of those different things. But that's good screenwriting right there.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
X never marks the spot.
Let me tell you, speaking of the script, let me tell you the best line in this movie is when all the sailors are out there drinking and everything, and old Buckflower's like, yeah, I'd like to meet her. And dude goes, I saw her at a grocery store. You would like to meet her.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the best line in this whole movie.
That is a great line. I think that I could have done with a hell of a lot more sailors, like people on sailing vessels.
Right.
Because that's really who would be dealing with the sailing ghosts. Is the sailors at sea.
We stay on shore an awful lot for a movie that's got to do with sailing.
Yes. Also, I think that there's probably still a little bit of Jaws in the DNA of this thing because Jaws had come out 4 years earlier.
Yeah,
and so there's probably a little bit of that there too.
Yeah, we don't quite show our villain here and everything, and it's always the creeping sort of thing. And then when they kind of show up, that's the big, reveal and all that kind of stuff.
water based. It's a water based adventure, although they're on land a hell of a lot.
It's Jaws, but they never leave land. This movie doesn't sell nearly as well.
I like this movie interests me. Like it's a very interesting failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting movie. It's just not very good. It's slow. It's so slow. It feels like what old movies used to feel like to me when I was a kid, where it's like nothing's happening. It's just two people talking forever and ever and ever.
It feels, oddly enough, this, while shot after, feels like what probably would have normally gone before Halloween.
Right.
Like you do this movie and then you go like, you know what? We learned a lot of good stuff on that. Let's go make this Halloween. And then when you put Halloween out, it's like, oh shit, we learned a lot here, didn't we? Now we made this really kick-ass movie. This doesn't feel like the follow-up to Halloween. But again, like you said, when we started this thing, they didn't have any clue that, Halloween was the thing that it ended up becoming.
It's true. Although by the time that they make the score for this movie, they probably knew.
Oh, yeah, because the score reeks of Halloween.
It is the same thing, just with a different key.
Yeah, it's like, your ding, 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 ding. We're going to do that. We're going to do that because we still got that programmed into the keyboard. We're going to do that, but we're going to shift it over a little bit this way. There we go. Boom. And now we've got a different score altogether.
A lot of wind chimes in this movie.
Listen, there was a sale at Music Guitar Center there, so they just bought as many of the wind chimes as they possibly could.
Wind Chimes Emporium.
Now, I didn't realize that this was also kind of he was very DC Comics and Lovecraft sort of vibe. When you hear that makes a little bit more sense, this kind of thing, doesn't it?
It does. It also makes sense to know that when he was making it, he was trying to get rid of Deborah so that he could be with Adria Barbeau. Both, by the way, both women way out of that man's league.
Oh yeah,
way out of that man's
league. He just looks like Ratso from the Muppets, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah,
I want to see him skating around on a griddle with butter shoes.
And I'm here for the food. Yeah,
smoking a cigarette.
My favorite of the new Muppets, by the way. Boy, we are really stretching to find stuff to say about the Fog at this point. My favorite of the new Muppets is the bear. The bear who's all business.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Hello, yes sir. I love how understated that bear is. I love that bear.
Juxtapositions are funny.
They are.
So I got this question for you. Jamie Lee Curtis got Mom Janet Leigh to join her for this low budget film. I think it's really nice. Now, what would it be like if you brought your dad to work with you?
I'd kill him. He would be dead. He would be dead in a day.
I sat there and imagined. I was just like, at first I thought like, oh, a parent at work. I'd like, you know what? If and I still had a job, I'd be like, I could take one of my parents at work. I feel like we could get along well enough. We could kind of, bust into some sort of role. And I was like, and the second I thought that, I go, what would Sean's be like? What would that happen if things just like, hey, Dad, come on to work with me. You're gonna follow around what I do today. I couldn't imagine.
We could barely share a coast. Never mind, live in the same house. Yeah, he's the worst. He's just the worst human being in the world. Okay. It would be very bad. I would never bring it up, not once, not ever. Yeah. He wouldn't take direction from anyone.
But other than that, perfectly fine.
Doing that. I'm not doing that.
I don't think so. Other question I got here was, this kid brings his mom a plank of wood like it was made of gold. What's the dumbest thing your child has ever brought you?
Oh boy, this is a tough one.
Because you had to you had to go, oh, sweetie, that's so whatever. You gotta be a good dad about it. But it's but it's the dumbest ass thing you've ever seen in your life.
I mean, I don't have anything readily to go. Mm-hmm. I'm more of a well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But I don't have no, not really.
Okay.
I can't think of anything where just off the top of my head, like, are you kidding? I don't have one.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. That means that you didn't have to just, lie to your children a whole bunch and just go like, oh, that's lovely. That's the best ever.
Like they would make me things at school. I still have all of that stuff. Like I still have all of it. For Father's Day each year, they would paint me. I would buy all the paint supplies and they would make a painting for me. My favorite one of which is still hanging up in my office here in Atlanta right now.
Nice.
As I'm talking to you, I'm staring at it. It's one of my favorite possessions. So like I don't have like there's no they're really kind of they were always thoughtful actually. To give an example of the kind of kids you're dealing with here, like one time they showed their ass in the grocery store. One of them did. And so I was like, we're almost done grocery shopping too. And they completely blew up, just totally pressed the nuclear button and started screaming. And so I was like, okay, we're done. And grabbed them both, picked them up, left the cart there, walked out.
Yep.
We were done.
Classic.
We get in the car. The kid who's flipping out, who's just screaming bloody murder. The second I put her in the car, we're driving away. The first thing she's like, what's going to happen to all our cart? What's going to happen to all the food in our cart? What's going to happen? What's going to happen to that? And I was like, well, now somebody from the store has to put all that stuff back. Somebody has to do that. I was like, yeah, because you made it so we couldn't be in the grocery store anymore. So now you've just made a lot more work for somebody who didn't deserve it. And I could have punched her in the face and it wouldn't have hurt her as bad as me saying that to her, to the point where to this day, same kid will go out of her way, no matter how far away the cart corral is.
Oh yeah.
There might not be one in the parking lot. She will go all the way to the front of the store and put it back in its place to this day because it traumatized her that much. So that's kind of the thoughtfulness that you're that of the children you're dealing with here.
So they're not bringing you driftwood. Well, I mean, I guess that's
shows they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that though. They'd be like, "This is junk."
I love the fact that mom just goes, well, it was a gold coin, and then it just turned into this to a piece of wood that's got some routing in it with a what?
Yeah, but kids say weird shit like that all the time.
Yeah, I'd be like, that's lovely, and then you put it on top of your stereo, and then it burns the hell out of the stereo and stuff. You're like, what's going on here? We barely even addressed that. We're just like, yeah, it's pirates or some shit. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole Simpsons line. They were kissing and they had a baby, and the baby looked at me and winked at me.
Looked at me.
It winked at you.
All right, so let's ask this question. Since we are on the Jamie Lee Curtis train here and everything, Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie, is she doing it?
She's great. There's something about Jamie Lee Curtis where your eye is just drawn to her. There's something very interesting about her all the time, even now. She's just an interesting person. I don't think she has a lot to do in this movie, and what she has to do is all weird. Yeah. Everything is weird. Everything they have her doing in this movie is weird.
Because it's not how normal people act. Normal people would not just be going along with this great adventure and just going like, well, I'm going to Des Moines, but I want to see how this is going to play out.
She's the best part in this movie that's not good.
Yeah, she's fine. Like, I at least, despite it being the weirdest kind of thing ever, I kind of buy her, at least physically, with Tom Atkins.
Which is hard because she's like a 9 in this movie and he's like a 3.
Yeah, it's just some old broke ass truck driver and stuff, and you're just like, but she seems like she actually does like him and stuff. So like that chemistry does, at least while improbable, seems somewhat possible within this film.
Yeah, she makes it work.
Now, if you had to recast somebody in that role, do you have somebody that you think could fill that spot?
Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck is playing. I'd love to see them right after the love making, just sitting in bed going, "What's your name again?"
Just get everybody getting mad because they're all covered up after the sex scene. Like
No, you can't see the nipples.
Why aren't we seeing full frontal from these two people?
Looks over and just goes, "Can I borrow your mustache?" My answer, and I think this would be good, and I think she would fill this role well. She would easily be cast in this because she knows the director.
You're talking about recasting her.
Yeah.
Oh, I was talking about recasting the Duke.
No, I'm not recasting Tom Atkins. I'm recasting Jamie Lee Curtis, and I thought you as a recasting Tom Selleck, because that was a very interesting choice to have this.
That's very funny. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't know we were recasting Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes, we're recasting Jamie Lee Curtis, who I would actually put as I think PJ Souls could do this role.
Oh yeah, she'd be good in this.
She'd be perfect for it.
She would, but I think I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis just has so much charisma, like on-screen charisma, and I don't think that PJ Souls does.
But here's the thing. I would buy her more as the type of girl that would do this. It feels like Jamie Lee Curtis is too smart of a girl to be doing this.
Yeah, it's true. But PJ Souls also isn't putting asses in the seats.
No, but at the time, again, to be fair, at that time, neither was Jamie Lee Curtis up until...
I think by the time that The Fog came out, she was.
By the time that it was, but not while they were shooting it.
It's true.
So you didn't know what things were going to end up doing there and everything.
No, you're right. And people in the future tend to have a tendency to think that, like, we didn't know we were going to win World War II. You know, like, you didn't know the way things are going to turn out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Janet Leigh always just saying, "Hey, listen, people come up to me all the time and be like, The Fog is my favorite movie."
No, they don't. Janet Leigh's a liar.
Big old giant liar here and everything. That's a tall tale if there ever was. I believe the ghost before I believe that anybody actually fucking came up to you and just be like, "This is the best one." You know what?
Agreed.
Stop it there. That Hitchcock hack. Fucking hack.
That's what I mean. No one's coming up to you saying that The Fog's their favorite movie, Janet Leigh. Everyone's coming up to you talking about the other thing you were in.
Jeez Louise. All right, let's get down to it. Movies come in only two forms. We don't get this one very often. My guess is we're going to go in a particular direction. Is this movie art or fart? Sean, what say you?
I think this is the first movie that I'm giving a fart to since we've been doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Since we've been grading with art and fart. This is a fart, this movie. This movie is not good. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. If you're a massive John Carpenter head, you've already seen it. So I don't have to say to you, you should check it out if you're interested in John Carpenter. Like, I don't even know who I would say, hey, you should check this movie out.
It's not making anybody's Mount Rushmore of Carpenter films. Nobody's, I don't think.
No way.
I mean, like even like we were saying in our Dinger Zone top 5 Carpenter things, I don't even think we'd put it in a top 10. And like you can only get to really past 5. You're starting to push it with Carpenter flicks, going like, well, we're nitpicking at this point and everything. So yeah, for me, it's a fart as well. You know what's interesting? I almost there was a half a chance because I do own this on DVD. I had it forever and ever and a day. But I was out at the mall, weirdly enough, just because I had nothing to do. So I went by and I saw a steel book of The Fog in 4K and everything. It was what I would call an acceptable price. And I almost purchased it, but let me tell you, I'm glad I didn't because this movie does suck. It's not very good. Man. And I probably would have been like, yeah, the picture probably would have been a lot better than what I saw, but I don't know that improving the picture of this film is going to do it the service that it needs to do to make it a good film. You could put Star Wars in the middle of this and it would still have The Fog, bookending the other sides of it. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, the other part to this is that it's a horror movie that is not even remotely like scary. And not only is it not scary, like the parts that are supposed to be scary make you laugh. And not like jump scare, start laughing. Like it's kind of ludicrous.
Mm. So there it is, everybody. Two big old giant farts here for you. We don't get them too often around here, but sometimes they happen. That is it. That's our second round of our October Scream Queen-O-Ween, the films of Jamie Lee Curtis. We're getting cooking up here because next week we're going down to the oft forgotten entry in Jamie Lee Curtis, with Prom Night from 1980. There was like, she was just going bang, bang, bang with these horror films, your late 70, early 80 here and everything. So we're going to go. Now, have you watched Prom Night? Has this one been on your list?
I have not. I haven't seen Prom Night either.
I think I own a DVD of Prom Night from like way back. I think it cost under $5, and from what I remember, looked like absolute ass.
Sure, of course.
I don't know that I even finished watching it at that point because I was just like, this is like, it looked like somebody just took the shittiest VHS tape and just ripped it onto a DVD, slapped it up there, and goes, these fools will buy this, and we did. Because it was like a nickel.
If you're getting a movie for $5 at like in like some bin,
yeah, because it's a public domain thingy. Yeah, no one owns the copyright on that shit, and they can just print it out, and it doesn't matter if it's garbage or anything. But so we'll be checking out Prom Night. My guess is you can see it on YouTube or a whole bunch of other places, but we'll check all that kind of good stuff out and see if there's a reason why it's the more oft-forgotten film in this, or maybe it's a dying classic. We don't know. We don't know.
Maybe it's a hidden gem.
One might be so bold as to ask if it were art or fart. We'll find all that out next week. Until then, Sean, where can people find Scootable Adventures on the internet?
It's at YouTube / Set Deck Sean for e-scooter guide videos. It is a very that is a chunky mouthful that it sounds weird on my tongue.
Man, I've been giving the ladies a chunky mouthful all the time.
I hate saying those words together, but that's what they are. And it is a very it's kind of something you can put on in the background because it's very low key, and just watch these me and my lady just traveling around on our e-scooters. It's pretty cool.
I throw it up on the 80-inch television there, so it's kind of like I'm almost on a scooter myself.
What?
It's like I'm going, ooh, look at me. It's almost like I'm out of doors. It's nice, lovely. But all the comforts of the indoors, thank Christ. I would like you folks out there to follow me on TikTok. Check it out, Adam Portress. I am doing a 31 Days of Halloween Horror where I am reviewing a movie every single day this month and everything. It
looks great too.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job with that stuff, Adam. Seriously,
it's a decent amount of work because I'm like, there's not a lot of TikTok videos out there where people are shooting with 2 cameras. I'm editing video in and stuff like that, and pictures and whatnot. So I'm trying to make it entertaining and everything. So check that out. I'd really appreciate that. I'm putting more work into it than you can possibly imagine. And for the love of God, patreon.com/HMP. Lost my job this week, so we need a little extra support, everybody. Patreon.com/HMP. We love you so much. That is it, everybody. Join us next week for our next installment of Scream Queen-O-Ween, the films of Jamie Lee Curtis with Prom Night for the absent Bruce Leslie. Sweet Sean Z. Kovacs from the internet. I'm Adam Portress reminding you the only difference between art and fart is an F.